You trudge through the damp, wind-lashed hills of northern England, your boots sinking slightly into the sodden grass as you imagine the tiny village where Rubeus Hagrid was born, the mist curling around the thatched roofs like an enchanted veil. The air smells faintly of wood smoke and wet stone, and you can almost hear the soft scuff of Hagrid's first steps, awkward and oversized, in a world not quite ready for someone of his stature. His mother, a gentle giantess whose presence was both awe-inspiring and tender, filled the house with warmth and the kind of laughter that rumbles through your chest, the kind you can feel more than hear. His father, a wizard of modest means and quiet temper, tried his best to bridge the gap between worlds, human and giant, but often failed, leaving young Hagrid to navigate teasing neighbors, whispered prejudices, and the quiet sorrow of being different. You probably won't survive the shock of realizing just how many villagers thought a half-giant child might bring curses instead of magic. Still, the boy's early life is a patchwork of ordinary delights and extraordinary misfortune, collecting wild toads by the riverbank, accidentally setting off sparks from his small wand, and hearing hushed arguments about whether giants were even meant to exist in the modern age, debates that continue among scholars of magical folklore even now. On stormy nights, when the wind rattles the windows and the hearth glows like liquid gold, Hagrid would listen to tales of his giant ancestors, some historically documented, others fanciful or rumored, the line between reality and myth blurring just enough to make a child question everything he thought he knew about the world. And yet, amidst the solitude and subtle bullying at school, he found small moments of wonder. The first time a squirrel perched on his shoulder without fear, the scent of crushed autumn leaves underfoot, and the distant, thrilling roar of creatures he had only glimpsed in books. These formative years instilled in him both a fierce loyalty and a gentle understanding that life's rules are often bent, stretched, or entirely rewritten for those who are different. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'm really curious, from which part of the world are you watching this video? Write your country in the comments. Let's see how far this little story has traveled. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge on, imagining the tangled web of love, neglect, and curiosity that molded Hagrid, the beginning of a story that is as monumental as the giant himself, a tale of a boy too large for small spaces, yet somehow fitting perfectly into the heart of the magical world he was destined to protect. From enchanted forests to the quiet hum of his mother's lullabies, every sound, scent, and shadow shaped the gentle giant, the one who would later grow into a man of immense heart, colossal strength, and a reputation that swayed between fear and affection. Consider for a moment the fragile human politics of prejudice meeting the raw, unshaped power of a child too big for his time. Historians debate how much Hagrid's heritage influenced Hogwarts' later tolerance of giants and magical creatures, a conversation still alive in the corridors of magical academia. And yet, even in this early haze of confusion and wonder, you can sense that his heart was already vast enough to contain more courage, curiosity, and compassion than most wizards would ever possess. You trudge along the muddy path toward a towering castle whose turrets pierce the misty sky, and you can almost feel Hagrid's awe and trepidation mingling in his chest the first time he glimpsed Hogwarts from the train window. A vision of magic that seems both impossibly grand and faintly intimidating, like stepping into a painting that's still wet and shifting under your feet. The letter had arrived weeks earlier, its parchment crisp and edges curling slightly, summoning him to a world he barely understood but desperately wanted to belong to. a world where spells, potions, and enchanted beasts promised both delight and disaster in equal measure. You probably won't survive the embarrassment he felt when trying to explain his massive size to the Sorting Hat, which seemed momentarily flustered itself, debating whether his heart, his mind, or the shadow of his giant heritage would define him. The journey through the castle corridors is a sensory onslaught. The scent of candle wax mingling with damp stone, the low murmur of students' voices echoing like ghosts through ancient hallways, and the occasional clatter of enchanted objects reacting to Hagrid's unfamiliarity, as if the castle itself were testing his resolve. You see him, wide-eyed and hesitant, meeting the gaze of professors who are both curious and wary, whispering among themselves about the precarious mix of wizard and giant that stands before them. A debate still echoed in magical studies about the influence of bloodline versus character in young wizards. Amid the awe and nervousness, Hagrid finds unexpected allies. A few older students nod in quiet approval, sensing his gentle demeanor beneath the hulking exterior, and a stray owl flutters close, carrying a message of reassurance that even the smallest gestures can bridge worlds. On the first night, as he lays beneath a quilt that's laughably small for his frame, the soft creak of the four-poster bed mingling with the distant howl of a forest wolf, Hagrid imagines the countless adventures and mistakes awaiting him, aware that every misstep might be magnified by the very size that makes him extraordinary. Between lessons, the magical history he's absorbing feels both alive and daunting. Debates over the founding of Hogwarts, the ethics of magical creature treatment, and the lingering shadow of conflicts between giants and wizards swirl through his mind as he contemplates how he will carve his own path. And through it all, a spark of exhilaration persists, the thrill of belonging to a school that challenges, nurtures, and occasionally frightens in ways he could never have anticipated. The feast in the Great Hall offers both comfort and chaos. Long tables groaning under enchanted dishes and the hum of delighted students, while Hagrid navigates the tricky terrain of being both student and spectacle, awkwardly ducking under floating chandeliers and dodging a tray of animated jelly desserts that seem intent on claiming a part of his coat. Even amidst the laughter, the whispers, and the occasional misfired spell, a quiet determination grows. Hagrid will find his place, earn trust, and perhaps reshape perceptions about what a half-giant can achieve. A truth scholars and students alike continue to debate, yet one that feels undeniable in the warmth of newfound friendships and the hum of castle magic surrounding him. You trudge along the winding corridors of Hogwarts, your ears attuned to the shuffle of robes and the occasional spark of misfired magic, and you feel Hagrid's nervous excitement as he navigates classrooms where desks are too small and staircases seem to move on a whim, every turn offering a potential calamity or moment of wonder. The early days are a blend of fumbling spells, accidental wand sparks, and tentative greetings. You probably won't survive the laughter that follows when his first attempt at levitation sends a stack of textbooks tumbling like falling leaves, the sound echoing down the hallways like a warning to the more cautious students. Friendships begin in the most unexpected ways. A shared joke in the herbology greenhouse over oversized mandrakes, a whispered tip on controlling a bewitched broomstick, and the quiet solidarity of those who recognize that a half-giant child navigating a wizarding school needs allies more than accolades. You sense the delicate balance Hagrid maintains between humility and curiosity, often overcompensating with gestures of kindness towards smaller students, while still yearning to master the simplest of charms. Debates about his potential still whispered among professors. Was his size a gift, a liability, or an undecidable mix of both? Among these trials, Hagrid discovers his fascination with magical creatures, rescuing a tiny, injured owl during care of magical creatures, and quietly arguing with instructors about whether dragons should be handled with love or strict discipline, a question that has sparked centuries of scholarly debate. Between lessons, the castle itself seems to conspire against him. Portraits comment slyly, suits of armor creak in disapproval, and the ever-present smell of charred parchment reminds him that even small mistakes carry weight. Yet these early misadventures teach resilience, humor, and the importance of finding one's own rhythm within the chaos. On a particularly rainy afternoon, Hagrid attempts his first potion in the dimly lit dungeons, the cauldron hissing and bubbling with a life of its own, and he realizes that errors often carry lessons more lasting than success. A quirky tidbit being that many great wizards reportedly discovered breakthroughs through their blunders, though historians argue whether Hagrid's successes were accidental or the product of genuine instinct. His evenings are spent under the high, vaulted ceilings of the common room, poring over textbooks with more zeal than skill, listening to the low murmur of friends sharing secrets, and savoring the rare moments when his awkwardness transforms into charm, eliciting smiles that buoy his spirit against the unspoken prejudice that shadows his presence. Every spilled potion, every misfired charm, every cautious conversation gradually weaves the tapestry of his early Hogwarts life, imprinting lessons of loyalty, patience, and courage, and forming bonds that will endure far beyond these formative years. Even as debates about the influence of half-giant heritage on magical aptitude continue quietly in the minds of scholars, whispering a persistent question: how much of Hagrid's greatness comes from heart, and how much from heritage? In these moments, you glimpse the gentle giant in training, a boy who is learning not only magic, but the art of navigating a world that often measures worth in conformity rather than compassion. You trudge through the shadowed hallways of Hogwarts, recalling the tense atmosphere of Hagrid's third year, when an incident so monumental it reshaped his life forever unfolded, and you can almost feel the weight pressing on his massive shoulders as rumors spread like wildfire among the students. It begins with whispers of a dangerous creature spotted near the castle grounds, a creature he had tried to help, and you probably won't survive realizing that a single misunderstanding could transform a moment of compassion into a lifetime of suspicion. That afternoon, the classroom windows rattle with the hum of magic, and Hagrid, eager to protect what he believes is innocent, steps into a situation that escalates beyond his control, igniting a debate still discussed in wizarding ethics circles. Was it negligence, heroism, or merely tragic coincidence? Teachers arrive in a flurry of robes, voices sharp yet tinged with concern, while students peer from behind corners, their eyes wide with curiosity and fear, witnessing a man too large for small spaces trying desperately to explain what happened. The fateful misunderstanding culminates in a confrontation with the school authorities, a moment punctuated by hurried notes, hurried meetings, and hushed conversations about safety, responsibility, and the influence of heritage on judgment. Historians debate whether Hagrid's half-giant blood played a role in the perception of guilt, or if it was merely a convenient scapegoat. You can sense the emotional turbulence. Shame, frustration, and a flicker of indignation intermingle as he faces expulsion, and the quiet moments afterward reveal Hagrid's humanity in full relief, his eyes scanning the empty corridors, lingering on places that once felt like home, now tinged with sorrow. Amid the tension, there are still small, almost comic moments that betray his character. A falling book narrowly missing his head, a cat dashing across the hall with alarming timing, and an owl dropping a letter on his shoulder at the most inopportune instant. As if the magical world itself is punctuating the drama with irony. Friends, uncertain how to intervene, offer whispered counsel, creating a tapestry of loyalty and caution. The debate over whether his punishment was fair continues among magical scholars, some citing procedural necessity, others emphasizing the importance of context and character. Yet in the midst of chaos, Hagrid demonstrates the seeds of his enduring courage. He defends the misunderstood, stands by his principles, and begins to form a quiet, stubborn resolve that will define him in the years to come. That single, devastating day shapes the trajectory of his life, teaching lessons in humility, responsibility, and the often blurred line between mistake and malice, while quietly imprinting on him a moral compass so steadfast that it will guide his hands, heart, and occasionally enormous feet through every adventure yet to come. You trudge down the narrow lane that leads away from the familiar towers and echoing halls of Hogwarts, feeling Hagrid's heavy heart as he faces dismissal, a separation from the school that has been his entire universe. And you probably won't survive the sting of realizing how swiftly admiration can turn to suspicion when fear and misunderstanding take hold. Stripped of formal teaching duties, yet too proud and too tender-hearted to abandon his beloved creatures, Hagrid navigates life on the fringes of the magical community, inhabiting the small, ramshackle hut on the edge of the forbidden forest, where the wind whistles through broken shutters and the trees whisper secrets of their own. He learns the rhythm of survival, tending to acromantulas, nursing dragons through fragile infancy, and coaxing hippogriffs to trust a hand far larger than usual, all while evading the critical gaze of wizards who question his judgment and capabilities. Debates still lingering in magical academic circles over whether Hagrid's exile was a protective measure or a grave injustice. Small joys punctuate the isolation, the warm coo of a phoenix, the rustle of a thestral's wings in the night, and the odd, endearing loyalty of creatures who sense that his heart is a sanctuary, no matter how colossal his hands. You sense Hagrid's quiet rebellion as he secretly brings injured creatures to Hogwarts grounds, treading the line between rule-breaking and devotion. And in these acts, a pattern emerges. A man whose life is defined less by the letter of the law and more by the weight of moral obligation. A lesson echoed in both mainstream histories of the wizarding world and in the murkier annals of fringe magical studies. Even amidst the modest comforts of his hut, Hagrid battles loneliness, haunted by the laughter and camaraderie he once knew, and finds solace in correspondence with select professors who trust his instincts and recognize the giant's profound empathy. Quirky incidents punctuate these days. A runaway blast-ended scroot ignites a hedge, a startled bowtruckle hides in his beard, and the occasional enchanted broom delivers a misplaced note, each mishap reinforcing his reputation as unpredictable, yet undeniably kind. Through patience, resilience, and the quiet pursuit of knowledge about magical creatures, Hagrid gradually establishes himself as an indispensable, if unconventional, member of the Hogwarts ecosystem, preparing for a return to influence not through titles, but through trust, respect, and unwavering moral courage. The boundaries of his exile teach lessons no classroom ever could. That loyalty is earned in small acts of courage, that compassion can defy fear, and that even a life that begins in scandal can grow into legend, albeit quietly, like the slow unfurling of a dragon's wing in dawn light. You trudge through the shadowed edges of the forbidden forest, the scent of damp earth and pine thick in the air, and you feel Hagrid's heartbeat quicken with both excitement and caution as he tends to creatures that most wizards avoid entirely, the soft rumble of his giant frame blending with the whispers of leaves and distant howls. You probably won't survive the chaos that follows when a dragon's tail swishes unexpectedly, knocking over a stack of cages and scattering baby dragons across the clearing, each screeching and snapping, while Hagrid moves with a surprising nimbleness, soothing them with gentle words and a steady hand, proving that size does not preclude tenderness. His friendships deepen in these wild spaces. A few trusted students and colleagues venture into the forest, drawn to Hagrid's infectious passion and unshakable loyalty, sharing in debates about magical ethics, the treatment of dangerous creatures, and whether his methods are reckless or revolutionary. Arguments still lingering in academic circles of magical zoology. You witness his unorthodox methods, coaxing blast-ended Skrewts into obedience, talking to hippogriffs with a mix of respect and humor, and rescuing Thestrals from tangled brambles. A quirky detail often noted in folklore that Hagrid's creatures seem to respond to emotion rather than command. A phenomenon both celebrated and questioned by scholars. Nights are filled with both wonder and peril. The rustle of giant spiders in the underbrush, the low glow of a dragon's fire reflecting on wet leaves, and the occasional lightning bolt of magic from his own experiments, all teaching lessons in courage, patience, and improvisation. Even in moments of danger, humor percolates. A mischievous Niffler burrows into Hagrid's coat, scattering coins across the forest floor, while a hippogriff's sneeze drenches him in dew, reminding you that life at the margins of the magical world is never dull, and that friendship often arrives in the form of shared misadventure. You sense Hagrid's protective instinct stretching beyond creatures to those few students brave enough to follow him, cultivating bonds that oscillate between mentorship, camaraderie, and a strange familial trust, a dynamic that historians of magical pedagogy still debate, whether his approach was unconventional guidance or outright endangerment. Through all this, his heart remains vast. He nurtures, defends, and teaches, letting loyalty and compassion dictate actions where rules might fail. And in this crucible of fire, claw, and wing, Hagrid emerges not just as caretaker, but as a symbol of courage. The gentle giant whose life is a constant negotiation between the chaos of creatures and the order of human expectation, bridging worlds with patience, humor, and unshakable kindness. You trudge back across the familiar grounds of Hogwarts, feeling the crisp air brush against Hagrid's enormous frame as he returns to the castle not as a student, but as keeper of keys and grounds. A role that places him at the heart of the magical world he loves, yet keeps at a cautious distance. And you probably won't survive realizing just how much responsibility can weigh when your very presence inspires both awe and fear. His first days back are a mix of wonder and trepidation. The castle seems smaller now in some ways, its corners and hidden passageways whispering secrets, while the staff exchange glances that mix relief with lingering concern, debating quietly whether the half-giant's return will disrupt the careful balance of order. A scholarly debate still echoed in Hogwarts archives. You witness his gentle authority as he unlocks massive doors, tends to the grounds, and mediates between creatures and students. His heart as expansive as ever, tempered by years of experience and quiet reflection on past mistakes. Even mundane tasks take on magical significance. Coaxing a flock of enchanted chickens from the forbidden forest, negotiating with a cantankerous Thestral, and ensuring that dragons and hippogriffs coexist without incident. A display of diplomacy and courage that draws admiration from allies and skepticism from naysayers. Quirky moments abound. A runaway blast-ended Skrewt sets off a small explosion in the greenhouse. A stray owl deposits a love letter in his coat pocket, and students nervously whisper about the giant with a heart of gold, illustrating both the wonder and unpredictability of life alongside Hagrid. Through these duties, he also becomes entwined with some of the castle's deepest secrets, entrusted with keys, knowledge, and protective responsibilities that demand discretion, judgment, and unwavering loyalty. Responsibilities that even seasoned professors acknowledge as daunting. blending the practical with the magical in ways few could comprehend. His interactions with students reveal a tender mentorship, guiding young witches and wizards, sharing stories of magical creatures, and occasionally overstepping in ways that invite playful reprimand yet strengthen bonds. A subtle yet powerful influence that shapes generations. Behind the jovial smile and booming laugh lies a steadfast guardian, quietly negotiating the tension between the weight of the magical world's expectations and his own moral compass, demonstrating that leadership is not about grandeur, but patience, empathy, and the courage to act in the face of uncertainty. Hagrid's return to Hogwarts solidifies his role not just as caretaker of keys and creatures, but as a bridge between fear and understanding, authority and friendship, proving that the giant's heart holds the castle together in ways visible and invisible, celebrated and sometimes misunderstood, yet undeniably vital to the life of every corner, corridor, and creature within its walls. You trudge through misty valleys and hidden forest paths far beyond Hogwarts' familiar walls, feeling Hagrid's excitement and nervous anticipation as he leads you on clandestine journeys, where magic and nature intertwine. And you probably won't survive the sense of wonder when a flock of enchanted creatures suddenly sweeps across the sky, their wings casting flickering shadows over moss-covered stones. These adventures are not mere strolls, but lessons in courage, observation, and improvisation. Hagrid navigates treacherous terrain, negotiates with hidden magical communities, and occasionally debates with scholars and local magical authorities about the ethics of creature protection, a discussion that still fuels heated arguments in academic circles. The world outside the castle teems with both beauty and peril. Glimmering streams with fish that vanish mid-air, towering trees with whispering leaves, and distant cliffs where dragons nest. Each encounter teaching him, and you alongside him, that knowledge often comes cloaked in risk. Quirky incidents punctuate these excursions. A mischievous niffler steals a handful of shiny objects. A startled bowtruckle clings to Hagrid's coat, and a rogue blast-ended Scroot erupts unexpectedly, reminding you that adventure is never without chaos and laughter. Hagrid's relationship with the natural world deepens as he studies rare flora, observes nocturnal creatures, and rescues those endangered by human error, blending practical wizarding skills with the intuitive empathy only someone of his size and heart could manage. You sense the tension between freedom and responsibility, especially as Hagrid faces criticism from wizards who fear the power of the creatures he protects, prompting debates over whether his methods are reckless or visionary, a question scholars still ponder. Nights are spent by campfires where shadows dance across his enormous features, his voice rumbling with stories both magical and mundane, weaving history, legend, and personal anecdote into lessons on trust, bravery, and the subtle art of diplomacy with creatures that cannot speak your language but understand intent. The thrill of discovery is accompanied by moments of introspection. Hagrid reflects on his own growth, the mistakes that shaped him, and the enduring bonds of friendship that sustain him, reinforcing that his adventures are as much about personal courage as they are about magical ethics and conservation. By the time dawn tinges the horizon pink, you understand that Hagrid's excursions are a living curriculum in empathy, resourcefulness, and the negotiation between order and chaos, proving that even the gentlest giant can lead with audacity, humor, and a moral compass unwavering in the face of uncertainty. These journeys beyond the castle walls define not only Hagrid's legacy, but the enduring lessons he imparts to all who walk beside him, shaping a world where creatures, students, and humans alike find a measure of understanding, protection, and, occasionally, a roaring laugh in the face of danger. You trudge through the castle corridors and forested grounds alike, feeling Hagrid's steady, reassuring presence as he mentors students who stumble, creatures who falter, and even teachers who occasionally need reminding that kindness is a form of magic, and you probably won't survive the warmth that radiates from him when a nervous first year finds courage under his guidance. Hagrid's days are filled with lessons both formal and accidental, guiding young witches and wizards through care of magical creatures classes, improvising strategies when a hippogriff misbehaves, and gently correcting students who underestimate the subtlety of magical ethics, a subject that sparks scholarly debate about the balance of empathy and discipline in magical education. Quirky moments soften the rigor. A Niffler scurries off with a student's wand. A rogue blast-ended Scroot startles the entire class. And Hagrid's booming laughter echoes as he reassures both student and creature alike that mistakes are often the gateway to growth. He teaches by example, demonstrating that courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act despite it. That loyalty to friends, family, and creatures alike is a form of magic as powerful as any spell, and that compassion often demands more bravery than confrontation. Even mundane interactions hold depth. Preparing breakfast for a thestral or carrying a wounded dragonlet to safety becomes an exercise in patience and trust, reinforcing lessons in observation, empathy, and the subtle communication that bridges worlds. Through late-night conversations and quiet moments on the castle grounds, Hagrid instills resilience, reminding students that their actions ripple outward, affecting creatures, peers, and the balance of the magical environment, a principle still discussed in wizarding pedagogy today. Mainstream historical references to wizarding education underscore his unconventional impact, while fringe tales suggest he sometimes bends rules to accommodate heart over protocol, creating a debate among scholars about when moral obligation outweighs institutional regulation. You can sense Hagrid's affection in the careful way he tends to even the smallest creatures, the patient corrections whispered in students' ears, and the pride that shines through when a formerly timid pupil succeeds. A gentle giant whose heart shapes others more profoundly than any classroom lecture. By the end of the day, as moonlight spills across the grounds, and the air hums softly with the magic of quiet victories, Hagrid exemplifies guardianship in its purest form, steadfast, nurturing, and quietly heroic, leaving an indelible impression on all who walk through the castle gates and learn that bravery, empathy, and a giant heart can transform not just lives, but the very fabric of the magical world he inhabits. You trudge along the familiar paths of Hogwarts one last time, feeling Hagrid's heart swell with quiet pride and gentle sorrow as he reflects on a lifetime spent among creatures, students, and secrets. And you probably won't survive realizing how much a single, enormous soul can carry. The weight of loyalty, love, mistakes, and triumphs, all mingling in the air like the scent of autumn leaves after rain. His legacy is stitched into every corner of the castle, the well-tended grounds, the enchanted creatures thriving under his care, and the students whose courage and kindness were nurtured by his patience, a fact that scholars still debate in terms of formal influence versus intuitive mentorship. Secrets cling to him like morning mist, the hidden paths he has walked, the creatures he has protected from human fear, and the quiet acts of bravery no record will ever capture. Yet each contributes to the enormous warmth and trust radiating from him. Quirky tales accompany his legend. A dragon hatched in his hut, a mischievous Niffler hiding treasures in unlikely places, and the occasional burst of unintended chaos that reminds all that even heroes stumble, though their heart redeems every error. You sense the depth of his care in every interaction, from gently correcting a nervous first year to defending misunderstood creatures from persecution, his actions blending humor, courage, and steadfast morality, a combination that leaves an enduring mark on every life he touches. Even in moments of quiet reflection, Hagrid embodies the paradox of the gentle giant, a figure of awe and intimidation softened by unshakable kindness, his enormous hands capable of both destruction and comfort, his booming laugh a balm for the weary, his loyalty a quiet shield against injustice. As twilight descends, the castle bathed in gold and violet hues, he walks the grounds with creatures and students alike, each step a testament to the choices that define a life not by fame but by the integrity, compassion, and quiet heroism within. You see him pause by the lake, watching the mirrored surface ripple under the evening breeze, a symbolic nod to the many lives he has touched, reflecting his unwavering dedication to kindness and courage. And as the night air carries the soft sounds of the forest and the distant laughter of students, you feel the reassuring rhythm of a life well lived, a story concluding not with finality, but with gentle continuity. In these final moments, Hagrid's presence fades softly into the ambient hum of Hogwarts, the rustle of leaves, the distant flap of wings, the whisper of enchanted waters, each echo a part of him, leaving behind a legacy of empathy, courage, and humor, a heart so vast that even the smallest acts of care seem monumental. And as you linger in this serene stillness, the wind carrying the promise of new adventures and whispered tales yet untold, you realize that Hagrid's story is not merely one of a half-giant wizard, but of the enduring power of loyalty, the quiet magic of compassion, and the gentle strength that shapes worlds without need for grandeur or recognition. A reminder that the largest hearts often leave the deepest impressions. The night settles softly over the castle grounds, and you trudge slowly alongside Hagrid, feeling the cool grass underfoot and the gentle murmur of leaves in the trees. There is a calmness here, a rhythm that mirrors the slow breathing of a world at peace, where even magic pauses to exhale. Shadows lengthen across the paths, dappled by the faint glimmer of enchanted lanterns, and every distant sound, the hoot of an owl, the rustle of a hidden creature, the ripple of the lake, becomes a gentle lullaby. You notice how Hagrid's presence soothes the space around him. A subtle warmth radiates, a sense of safety that whispers to every soul, human or magical. Even the creatures seem attuned to this tranquility, moving quietly, pausing to regard him with trust, a testament to the countless days he has spent nurturing, protecting, and quietly teaching. As the sky deepens into velvety night, the stars sparkle faintly, mirrored in calm waters, a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the small yet profound role a single life can play. Hagrid walks slowly, hands brushing the tall grass, eyes reflecting moonlight. And you realize that stories need not end with noise or spectacle. Sometimes the most powerful moments are those of gentle continuity, the steady presence of someone who shapes the world without seeking applause. You take a deep breath, letting the serene atmosphere fill you, and as Hagrid's figure fades softly into shadow, you understand that the echo of his kindness, courage, and humor lingers, a gentle hum that will continue to comfort and inspire long after footsteps have vanished. With the wind carrying soft murmurs through trees and the faint shimmer of magical essence in the air, you feel a sense of closure, not harsh or final, but a peaceful pause, a whisper that the heart of a giant, gentle or brave, leaves a mark that time cannot erase.